I'm really going to enjoy this next conversation. Good friend, Osi Umenyiora. I'm excited about having this discussion with you. I want to introduce this conversation on how we first met. I think it was around 2003, 2004. And I'm on South Beach, Ocean Drive, and I get a tap on the shoulder, and you're like, "Hey, Mr. Wale, it's nice to meet you, and I'm a big fan of yours, and thank you for being my role model." And I was like, "Listen, what do you want me to sign, man? Like, beat it."
Now you told the truth up until the point where I called you Mr. Wale. That absolutely didn't happen. But I really appreciate you not treating me like a lot of people treat rookies and dismissing me. And you were very gracious. You were very nice to me, and you still are to this day.
And, my thinking about that, and I think I want to get your opinion on that is, as athletes, do we have an obligation to lift up the younger ones, the ones that start coming up the ranks? When I got into the league, there was this perception of, I'm a veteran, know your role. But my thinking is, and we're fighting the same battles, and a word of encouragement goes a long way. And what's your opinion?
Yeah, I think it's difficult to do that. It takes a special kind of individual to be able to do things like that, because you got to understand that in the game that we're in, the young will always replace the old. And so a veteran guy, for the most part, a lot of people are looking at that situation and they're like, man, this young guy is about to come in and take my job, or he's about to outshine me, and he's about to, maybe kick me out of the league, and this is my livelihood. So a lot of veterans, they're very, very, wary of that. They're insecure about that. And so they take that out on the younger people, not knowing that it's not the young guy's fault. Like, he didn't ask to get drafted there. He didn't ask to be the player that he is. And so as a veteran person, I think it's extremely important that you understand that, these young guys are just trying to make a living too. And you need to give them as much help as you possibly can, man, because a lot of times we're not coming from, places where we have a lot of structure or places where we have a lot of guidance. And so the veterans and the older people who are in the league are the ones who are going to be able to give us or give them that kind of guidance and advice.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think, playing professional sports, everyone knows it's less than 1%, and it's hard. Yeah. And for you to have management against you, fans, but then to have your colleagues also competing against you, I just think that, why make life harder for, a younger player that's trying to put food on the table for his family? And and I'm glad that me and you, we've always had that kinship on that level of trying to make things easier. And I think I'll segue into, and I'm talking about things being easier. This was a rough year. This was a rough year for not just, me individually or you individually, for the globe. Tell me more about, as we look past some of the struggles you've gone throughout your life, what are you most proud about, some of the obstacles that you've overcome? Not post NFL career, not making millions of dollars, getting to that point. Like, what are you most proud about?
Well, bro, I think, being born in England and then moving to Nigeria, living in Nigeria till I was 14, 15 years old and seeing everything over there, and then coming over here to America, it was a tremendous struggle, because when we came over here, we didn't have money. And so we were living in the projects, and, just being able to stay there and look at my family and look at the dynamics and look at everything that they went through, working at McDonald's from 11 at night to 7 in the morning, getting up and going to college just to be able to put food on the table. And then they all graduated from college, all 13 of us. It's really was an amazing thing. And making it to the NFL was one thing, but seeing the things that my whole family went through and the struggles we had and the fights that we had, and to have all 13 of us become college graduates and become successful people, for me, that is one of the things that I'm most proud of. And, knowing everything that I went through, knowing all the struggles, knowing every single detail of my life, and being able to be sitting where I am right now is almost incredible. And so I think that would be the thing that I would say I'm most proud of, is knowing the obstacles that have been placed in front of us and accomplish everything that we've accomplished, knowing all that.
No, I'm so great that you said that. You're so crazy about my house, same way. So I'm excited about that. And I'm excited to hear these things from you because you're reinforcing a lot of the stuff that I grew up with that I think that I'm going to carry on. And it brings me to you and your kids. And there was a funny video. I think you hope you remember this one. Your son was in a car and
Yep.
you were recording him because he didn't know how to wind the window down.
Oh yeah.
He was trying to press it like it was a power window.
No clue.
And because now of who you are, Os, and the level of luxury or privilege you're able to give your son, how do you get him to, and how will you get your sons to understand that it does take hard work and dedication to get the things that you want, but without losing those morals and values that you were raised up? How are you going to do all of that? How are you going to navigate that?
Wale, I don't have not one single clue. And it's that I spend a lot of time thinking through and trying to understand, because I see him now and he's in the best school here in England. You know, he is, you know, amongst just people whose kids are billionaires, and, you know, he lives a completely different life than I lived. And I kind of like it, to be completely honest with you. Like, I like the fact that I've given him that life. But then again, it's also a very, very difficult thing for somebody who's raised around that type of, you know, stuff to know what it is to struggle. And struggle, actually, that's what makes you a better person in a lot of respects, especially for people of color. Once you go through that, that's what allows you to actually succeed. So I want to instill that in him, but it's a really difficult thing to do. Trying to find that balance between doing that and giving him the hunger and the struggle and the sacrifice necessary for him to be a successful individual is an incredible dichotomy for me. And I still don't really have the answer. Like, it's tough, man. It really is. And I'm going to continue to try to find that balance. But to answer your question, I don't know how I'm going to do it, Wale. I really don't.
Well, listen, from my point of view, you've been doing a good job. I
I
think they've got a great example in the father, and all you have to do is just keep being yourself, and I think you'll be okay on that. And again, that's why I kind of, I didn't want to talk about it earlier. I know 2020 was tough for you. I know your father passed, and such a great man. Remember spending a lot of time with him, and I get it, and I see where you get this giving spirit from. It comes from him, no doubt about it. A byproduct, I think, of that giving, comes issues and problems that athletes tend to have when it comes to giving and giving the wrong way. And sometimes it can lead to financial ruin. How do you balance that? And who helps you make sure that your giving spirit is used in a way that's productive and not one where it's destructive, and make sure that at the end of the day, you don't have enough in the bank for your family and future?
That is a great question. And I'm glad you asked that, because as much as I learned from my father, I also learned some things not to do from my father, because he was so giving that he gave away everything. That was his thing. He gave away everything. And which is why when we left Nigeria to come to America, he had done so much and he had stretched himself so thin that, we didn't really have any money. And so me being in that situation, coming from where we were in Nigeria, where he was very wealthy, and then coming to America where you're dead broke, I said to myself, I'll never be broke. I will do whatever is in my power to never be in that situation. And so when I talk about giving, I know exactly how much, I have. I know exactly how much, the investments bring in, the bond portfolio. I know all of that. So when I give, I'm giving knowing exactly where this money is coming from and knowing that there's a limit to how much money I'm going to be able to give away. And as long as you set those boundaries and you set that red line for yourself, and I'm not going to cross this red line, you can give in perpetuity. Like you really can, just the way that the system is set up. And so this is the way I do it. And they looked at me as being frugal then, but now I'm 6 years retired, and I'm taking care of like 30 people. And we're all living good. We're all smiling. We're all happy. And, nobody's calling me frugal now, but it's just the ability to be able to think ahead and learn lessons from my father.
No, I appreciate that lesson. And you're right. You have figured out a way to give, but be smart. I think ultimately, Osi, I think, until you understood what you were doing, you didn't
Mm,
invest in it. So you're just like, I'm just going to save as much as I can. And you did talk about the house. You did have this big house. We won't talk about the craziness about it
yeah,
and some of the pitfalls of having a big house, being a single man in like this big mansion that you had. What we'll talk about though is that was probably the only time I was envious of you. Why do we have that sense of trying to keep up with the Joneses? Why did I have that, like, I gotta do it? I've got to
yeah.
get me a mansion. And why do athletes and entertainers, why do we feel like we've gotta keep up with our colleagues when it comes to that?
Because in order to make it to the levels that we made it to, there's a personality trait that you have to have. There's a personality trait that I feel like a lot of us have. And so for me, I had a smaller house in Kennesaw. Wonderful. I absolutely loved that house. It was a fantastic house. But then, I went to see Carlos Emmons and Takeo Spikes. These were guys who were living in Atlanta. And I saw their house. I was like, wow, this is massive. And they would have parties there. And I was seeing everything going on there. I was like, wow, I want this. And so, once I got paid, I said, you know what? I'm going to go buy a house bigger than, Carlos and Tequila's house. This was just our mentality. And it keeps on going on and on and on and on. And it's a very, very stupid thing to do. Like I tell people now, who got paid, I was like, listen, you're going to literally utilize 10% of that massive house you're buying. Just don't do it. I know you feel the need. I know you feel the urge. I know you've seen all these things and you want to do that, but it is so stupid and you're going to end up regretting it. And most players who bought those big houses, as soon as they retire, or maybe like a year or two after that, you see those houses are on the market right away.
Yeah, I mean, and I think, we've talked about this. That's probably going to be the biggest challenge that we have, and I'm going to have as being, the head of athlete and entertainers at UBS, is getting this segment of our population to understand who cares what people think of you, right? A lot of people voting for us as Pro Bowl players. We want people to follow us on Instagram and social media, but then we've got to flip the switch and say, don't worry about what kind of car you drive. Like, who cares?
Yep.
Like, it's such a hard, balance that our advisors are going to have to create. But I'm willing to do the work, and having people like you that I can fall back on is going to be such a big asset for us. Let's shift now and tell me, you're in London right now.
Mm-hmm.
You've done an amazing job post NFL. Talk to me about where you're at now as one of the brightest stars in the BCC in London. I went out there to see you, and it's an amazing job that you've done. But you're a great example for people. Tell me about that transition and how was it?
Well, it was a very, very easy transition for me. I got to be completely honest, because for me, football was always just it was a means to an end. It was just something that I was good at, and I just kept on playing and kept on playing, and I kept on benefiting from it. But I didn't start playing football until I was 15 years old. I didn't even hear about NFL until I was 15 years old. So I wouldn't say that I just was completely head over heels and in love with football. So when it was time for me to retire, I was like, oh, it's time for me to retire. And I just retired. I initially wasn't going to do anything. I just wanted to just chill and relax and enjoy myself. You know how I am, Wale. I'm a really, laid back type of person. But my wife was like, nah, you're not gonna do that. You're not just gonna sit at home with me. That's not how things are gonna happen.
Right.
So I said, well, okay, let me figure out what I'm gonna do. And I remembered having a conversation with Mark Waller when I first came to London to play, which was in 2007. I had a conversation with him when I saw what was going on. I was like, man, there's 80,000 people in the stands here. I didn't even know American football was big like that. So I said, listen, when I retire, I want to, come out here to London and help you. And so a year before I retired, I told him, I was like, yeah, when I retire, I'm coming to London. I'm going to figure out what's going on. He was like, all right, cool. So as soon as I retired, I called him. And literally less than a week after I retired, I was on a plane to London. So I came to London and, we started to do a television show, and it became a really, really successful show. So the transition for me wasn't as hard as it is for most people and most players, because football just wasn't. I didn't love football since I was a baby. I grew to love it. And so when it was time for me to move on, I moved on easily. And luckily for me, I had something to fall back onto right away.
You're moving to London. You've got to get a new house, new apartment, maybe even get a new car. Like, how does that happen, and who helps you in that transition?
Yeah, well, the guy who I had as an advisor, he's the guy who I had throughout my whole career. And so he's the guy who I trusted tremendously. And he was the one, like, when it was time for me to retire, I was like, listen, I want to retire. He was like, go right ahead. You have you have enough to retire. You're going to have a fabulous life. You're just going to be a check collector from now on. You just go to the mailbox and collect your checks. And I was like, okay, cool. So, having a guy like that who's always able to be completely honest with you, having somebody who's always able to tell you what's going on, show you where your money is, show you what you need to be doing, I think that's a very, very important thing to have.
What does the future hold for Osi?
Man, that is a great question. Probably president of Nigeria at some point, maybe in the next 5 to 10 years.
And you're not joking. And you're not joking. You're not joking. You're dead serious. I say it with a smile, but no, you're dead serious about that. This was actually pretty fun, and I hope we can do it again.
Man, that's so nice, man. Thank you guys so much. Love you too, Wale.